Hi, I'm McHenry, and I want to give you a quick overview of my curriculum, Mapping the Body with Art. This is the paperback workbook that you can order that has all the templates and information pages printed for you. You can also print everything right from the website. You don't have to order the paperback. You can print each template page as you go. But this is super convenient because it also gives you in the back some color copies for games, and it also gives you a copy, very small copy, of the way the drawing is supposed to look, the final drawing. So you have your little cheat sheets in the back here, which is convenient. I do give you these on the website, however you can download separately, but it's nice to have them all in the back. So the idea of the course is that you draw along with me as we do these video lectures. This is a lot more interactive than simply watching or listening to a lecture. I've had great success with this when I've tried it with my students. The students' retention is 100% better. They're very interested, they listen. It's just worked so well that I thought, hey, I'm going to do a whole course with it. So as it says on the cover, we build a body from atoms to organs. And lesson 1 starts out with the water molecule. So this is what the template page looks like. You get some words so you know where the drawings are supposed to go. And the text doesn't have to be read before you do the lesson. In fact, it doesn't really have to be read at all. If you have a student that really struggles with reading, just let it go. If they're a really good listener, they could get all the information just from drawing. So this is, though, if you want to go back and check and you want to remember some of the details without having to watch the whole lesson again, you could just skim through this and get it from there. So what will this look like when it's done? All right, I have a folder here that has some finished ones. It's going to look something like this, and we go along bit by bit. The whole lesson will take, a half an hour, 45 minutes. Some of the lessons will take up to an hour, but we explain everything as we go along. And I try to emphasize chemistry. We go on to a carbon atom because this is really important through the whole rest of the book. This is how the body works. All this chemistry stuff is extremely important. And then we start building some lipids and the phospholipid, which is what cell membranes are made out of. So it's a lot of chemistry at first. So we gradually work our way up till we have a membrane. And then we have to stop and talk about the things that are in the membrane, the little portals and channels through the membrane. We do the transport, active diffusion, and things like that. And then little gadgets that are in the membrane. And then amino acids, still a lot of chemistry, very heavy on chemistry at first. We build proteins, and we build sugars. And then we find out how proteins are assembled. This is the infamous translation and transcription process where the RNA template is used by the ribosomes to make proteins. We see how that happens. And then finally, we're able to build a whole cell, but it's not a human cell, it's a bacterial cell. And this is really important because you have 10 times the number of bacterial cells in your body as you do human cells. So we spend a little time talking about bacteria. And then we do the smallest cell in the body, which is the sperm. And then we do the Krebs cycle, electron transport chain, standard part of beginning biology, and then we finally get fertilization. We see the ovum and the zygote, and here we have a complete human cell. And that ends module 1, except we do a little bit with mitosis and some epigenetics. And then I do a short module on embryology. We see how that zygote cell turns into a complete human, but we only go up to about here. That's as far as I get in embryology, and then the rest is just basically development of the limbs. You can pick that up later. This is real fun. We do a worksheet on twins. Kids always like that. And then we start building tissues. We meet all the different types of tissues. I'm just going to skim through quickly. We won't see all of these, but we see blood, and then we see the white cells. I have quite a large section on immunology, and you will find out how the immune system works with little cartoon guys. Here, there's the macrophage with all these little receptors turn out to be extremely important. We find out how they interact, the B cells, antibodies, and then we find out how these things get expressed in the cell. And this looks complicated, but don't worry, when you go through it step by step, it makes sense. And we find out how the T cells and the B cells talk to each other. There's kind of the last overview of all the different types of immune cells. And we've got the neuron, etc., built more and more tissues. And of course, eventually we end up with organs. This is one of the most complex drawings because we have the mouth, the nose, and the throat all on one page. Now, I want to show you, for drawings like this, there's the ear. I want to show you how much of a template you get. I've marked out here some of the more complicated ones. All right, this is probably the drawing where I give you the most. This is basically a coloring page because this is so complicated. I could not ask anyone to draw that in one lesson. So that represents a page that has the least amount of drawing the student has to do. It's basically coloring. There's that mouth, nose, and throat where we give you all the outlines. So you can't go too far astray here. Filling in these bit by bit, you'll be fine. Even if you think you can't draw, you'll be fine. And the like here, the retina, the back of the eye, this is way too complicated. So we do some eye drawing here, which things that are reasonable to ask the student to do. And then the really complicated stuff, we just color it in and talk about it. And then again, like with the brain here, the lower brain, it's pretty complicated. So I go ahead and I give you those parts, but you have to fill in all the lobes. And again, the skeleton, that's pretty hard. So what I do is I have half skeleton, and then you draw the other half, and you try to match it. And then this is actually a famous drawing by a famous anatomist. So get a little art history there. And then, of course, the muscles. This is very difficult. So again, I use a famous drawing. So it's a way to get a little art history. So this is a one by Andreas Vesalius. But there's still a lot of sketching to do in here. There's a lot of sketching we do. But for most of the drawings, you get something like this, like that. You really draw from scratch on that one. So most of the time you're drawing it yourself. And sometimes I will use some models. I've got some nifty, there's my neck, my knee, my shoulder. I have a whole spine that I use. I have some larger ones that are too big to fit on in the camera area here. But sometimes I use models and I'll show you things. So, you know, I'd like to be able to just hand it through the camera and have the student be able to hold it, but I try my best to turn it around and make sure to show it very well. Another thing I do in the lessons is try to cover histology. We look at slides. Now, I know a lot of curricula recommend that you purchase a microscope or borrow a microscope and get actual slides and look at tissues, and that's great. If you want to do that as a supplement, that's wonderful. But a lot of people don't have access to a microscope, and I find that honestly, kids really don't get that much out of just simply looking at a slide. They don't know what they're looking at. I remember myself at that age, I had no clue what I was looking at. It was kind of a waste, actually. So we look at slides a lot, and I point things out, and we learn what these little structures are. There's something important. I make note of it. We talk about it. So we get a very high quality histology experience. And then if you do get slides and a microscope, it'll really help because you'll really kind of have an appreciation for what you're looking at. You'll know what to look for. And lastly, I like to add some art. I try to include art as often as I can. Some lessons it's easier than others. This one is kind of was an obvious no-brainer for doing an art project. This is a watercolor based on bone tissue, and it just makes these beautiful little rings. So whenever I can, I try to work in art. We also look at some works of famous artists. We've got a little art history in there also. And there are a few craft projects you can do as well. This one's kind of a little worse for the wear, but there's a 3D skin model you can make. And there's a brain hat showing the lobes of the brain. And there's an ear model. And there's also a model of the eye, although I don't have that right here to show you. And in the next section, I'm going to show you how you access this course on my website. To access this course, you go to my website, and if you haven't purchased it yet, you'll click on Store, and then find the product, Mapping the Body with Art. And then you'll see, here's the option to buy the workbook. If you want to do that, that's a separate option. And then these are the actual streaming courses. There's number 1 down there. If you want more information about one of these modules, you can click on it and you'll get a more detailed explanation. And also down here you can click on some of the lessons and you can watch the entire lesson. You can actually try it out. So this module has 1, 2, 3, 4 complete lessons that you can watch from beginning to end, so you know exactly what you're getting. So if you buy them all at once, if you put all of the modules into your cart, you get a nice discount, but you can buy them one at a time. So you would add to the cart, you would purchase it, and then after you purchase, they should show up here. It says My Courses. See, I'm kind of trying to highlight that. My Courses. You click on My Courses, and they should show up. There I've purchased Mapping the World with Art. There's Mapping the Body, Module 4, Module 3, Module 2, Module 1. So then you will click on the module, and then you will see some general instructions, and there's a place right here where you can download templates if you don't have a workbook, and then the lessons will be listed down here. So then if you click on a lesson, the video will come up right here. That's the video that you need to do the lesson. There's again the templates if you need them right there. If you have the workbook, you don't need them. And then I always list some labs or activities, or some where the art projects would be as well. Anything that I have as an extra will be listed below. So I do include some labs. Sometimes there's an online lab, sometimes it's a lab you can do yourself at home. There's instructions. Sometimes it's a video lab. There's a craft idea there. And then often I will also post a few supplemental videos. Now these are not videos that I've made. These are videos I've found on YouTube, and I think they're really good, and so I've just posted a link. So sometimes you'll get a few supplemental videos. And then at the bottom there's a quiz, and if you get a passing grade, which I think I have it set at about 60%, if you pass the quiz, then you go on to the next lesson.